Mr. Speaker, if further measures are needed, as the House will understand, if further regulation is needed, of course this House will have a further say. As for following his leadership, Mr. Speaker, they wibbled-wobbled over Plan B, they wibble-wobbled over quarantine, and if we listened to him, Mr. Speaker, we wouldn't even have the vaccine rollout, because we would have remained in the European Medicines Agency. And we wouldn't have opened up on July the 19th, Mr. Speaker. We would have remained in lockdown. That's the reality, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, let me put that straight back in its box. The Labour Party showed the leadership yesterday that the Prime Minister lacked. Mr. Speaker, if it wasn't for Labour votes, his government wouldn't have been able to introduce vital health measures we need to save lives and protect the NHS. So weak is his leadership. His own MPs were wrong.
Morning, guys. Can you all hear me okay?
But I can understand why they're angry with him. After all, the Health Secretary said this summer that relaxations of restrictions were irreversible. They weren't. Only last week, the government...
Order. I've been tempted by both of you a little bit too much. I think it's Christmas. That's the only reason you're going to remain.
I hope you all can hear me.
Mr. Speaker, only last week the government was saying Plan B measures
Just thought we'll
they are.
tune
Just
into
like the rail revolution
PMQs.
No one will have to sell their homes for social care, just like no tax rises. It's overpromise after overpromise until reality catches up. Does the Prime Minister understand why his own MPs no longer trust him?
Mr. Speaker, there he goes again. He comes to this House.
Look at his hair. Can you really take a guy that seriously with hair like that? Looks like a fucking scarecrow, doesn't he?
And then he talks endlessly about party politics and plays a political game. I think what the people of this country can see is as a result of what this government has done, with the decisions we've taken, the tough decisions that we've taken to deliver which he ducked, Mr. Speaker, to deliver the fastest vaccine rollout in Europe and now the fastest booster rollout.
Oh, his mask is slipping behind that.
The fastest growing economy.
It's nearly down under the nose.
More jobs today, 500,000 more
you're
jobs
local.
today than there were when the pandemic began. That is Conservative government in action, Mr. Speaker. We deliver, they complain.
Mr. Speaker, the only person undermining public confidence is sitting right there. Here's the problem. His MPs are wrong to vote against basic public health measures, but they are not wrong to distrust him. Last week, the Conservative member for the Forest of Dean asked, why should people at home listening to the Prime Minister do things that people working in Downing Street are not prepared to do? Tory MP. The Conservative member for Shipley last week asked the Prime Minister, can he give me any reason at all
Yes,
why
people remember to get your boosters.
to treat these rules the same way that Downing Street treated these rules last year? Now, the Prime Minister's had a week to come up with a good answer. Has he done so?
Mr. Speaker, the answer is very, very clear, and it's there in what the public are doing, Mr. Speaker, because they can see that the government is getting on with delivering on their priorities, not just on the economy, Mr. Speaker, but above all,
I've got a good barber he can go
fastest
to.
booster rollout in Europe. And he likes to. He's fond of these European comparisons, Mr. Speaker. But we've done almost double the percentage of any other European country. We've boosted 86% of the over 80s in this country, 91% of those aged 75 to 79. That is an astonishing achievement, and I think that is what the people of this country are focused on, Mr. Speaker. And rather than the partisan trivia that he continually raises, when frankly he has a case to answer himself.
See, nothing will ever happen. Once they leave Parliament, you think they're all going to get done for crimes. But
for weeks now,
you look at Hancock.
He claims that no rules were broken.
He took his seat back in the back bench. Nothing ever happens to him. Never get held to account. They just disappear.
His MPs don't believe him. and nor do the British public. He's taking the public for fools, and it's becoming dangerous, because from today, anyone who tests positive for coronavirus faces a second Christmas in isolation. It will be heartbreaking for families across the country.
Oh, did you hear that? It'd be heartbreaking.
The message from the government has to be, we know that following the rules won't be easy this Christmas, but it is necessary. Can the Prime Minister not see that he has no hope of regaining the moral authority to deliver that difficult message if he cannot be straight with the British public about the rule-breaking in Downing Street last Christmas?
Mr. Speaker, I've repeatedly answered that question before.
He hasn't answered it once, though, has he? He hasn't given a straight question answered once.
To me by the Cabinet Secretary into exactly what went on. He might explain why there are pictures of him quaffing beer.
Do you see what it is, though? It's just a chance to grown men can jeer and roast each other.
What we want us all to do is focus on the matter in hand and continue to deliver the vaccine rollout in the way that we are. And I think it is an absolutely fantastic thing that people are now coming forward in the way that we are, the way that they are. 45% of people over 18 have now had a vaccine, Mr. Speaker, and I thank our amazing staff. I thank the NHS. I thank all the GPs. I thank the GPs. And we are. Well, you blocked the investment in there.
What a bellend.
They wouldn't vote for it. They wouldn't vote for investment in our NHS, Mr. Speaker.
I think it's quite funny watching the BSL person, British Sign Language. The facial expressions he pulls is quite funny.
After they've been vaccinated, which I hope will encourage even more people to come forward.
Mr. Speaker, the virus is spreading once again, and lives and livelihoods are at risk. The British public are looking for a Prime Minister with the trust and the authority to lead Britain through the crisis. Instead, we're burdened with the worst possible Prime Minister at the worst possible time.
Well, would Keir Starmer be any better than what we've got already? You think not?
His own MPs have had enough. They won't defend him. They won't turn up to support him.
No, you're right, Jamie. They won't speak about the adverse effects.
They won't vote for basic public health measures. So at this time of national effort, the Labour Party stood up, shown the leadership that the Prime Minister can't, and put the health and security of the British people first.
This is silly because I can't hear the question. I will hear the question. I don't think we need any more help from this front bench. I'm just dealing with this corner first before I come back. Can I just say, I understand it's the last PMQs and we're going to be coming back in the new year, but I do need to hear the question. And it may take a long time, but I will hear it. So please, I want to get through questions. I want you all to get away for Christmas. At this stage, you won't. Yes,
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is so weak that without Labour votes last night, vital public health measures wouldn't have got through. But this country can't... Says it's not true. Oh, God. It's not true. He's so socially distant from the truth. He thinks that's not true. I don't know where to... We better press on. We can't go on with a Prime Minister who's too weak to lead. So will the Prime Minister take time this Christmas to look in the mirror and ask himself whether he has the trust and authority to lead this country?
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We won that vote last night with Conservative votes, as I told the House.
You won that vote down to Labour. You wouldn't have won that vote on your own.
That colleagues have about, of course I do. I respect and understand the anxieties, the legitimate anxieties that colleagues have about restrictions on their liberty, but I believe, and on the liberty of people, but I believe that the approach that we're taking is balanced and proportionate and right for this country. And let me tell you, Mr. Speaker, let me tell the House about some of the, he talks about leadership, some of the decisions, the tough decisions that I've had to take. I had to decide to stay out of the European ventilator scheme, so we had our own ventilator challenge, which which he then ridiculously attacked, I decided to go ahead of the rest of Europe, with the vaccine rollout, Mr. Speaker, which would have been impossible if we'd listened to him. I decided to go ahead with opening up our society and our economy on July the 19th, which he opposed, Mr. Speaker, which he opposed. And frankly, if we'd listened to him, never forget, we would not now have the fastest economic growth of the G7.
God, this guy is a fucking
tool. It's because we
tool.
took those courageous steps, Mr. Speaker, that we now have 500,000 more people in work now than there were when the pandemic began. And yesterday I saw 1.2 million job vacancies, Mr. Speaker. That is what Conservative governments do. They create employment. They create business opportunities. And above all, Mr. Speaker, we vaccinate, they vacillate. They jabber, we jab. They play party politics, Mr. Speaker, and we get on with the job.
See, this is a bit like the last day of the school term when you were allowed to bring games in and you never did any schoolwork. This is a bit like this PMQs today. It's the last day of school, isn't it? So it's a bit of fun.
I'm absolutely amazed that some of you wanted to catch my eye. Obviously you don't. Thanks for that. It's making my life easier. So don't be shocked when I wasn't going to put you in for that special question today. Let's come to the man of the moment, Dr. Liam Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As we look forward to 2022, one of the dates that stands out for me is the 21st of March, which will be International Down Syndrome Day. In thanking the government for the support, and indeed thanking all parties in the House for the support for the Down Syndrome Bill, can I ask the Prime Minister if he will give his personal commitment to ensure that we get that bill on the statute before International Down Syndrome Day, when we will be the first country in the world to do so? We talk about global Britain. It can't just be about trade and diplomacy. It must also be about values. Wouldn't that be a great place for Britain to start?
My right honourable friend is a wonderful campaigner on this issue. He's completely right about Down syndrome. People that can have poorer health outcomes. That this bill, I know, does aim to improve life outcomes for people with Down's syndrome, and we are pleased to support it, and we will do whatever we can to ensure the prompt progress of this bill.
We now come to the leader of the SNP, Ian Blackford.
Oh, this is the guy I really detest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
God, do I detest this guy.
It's not a pantomime.
Even they're saying it, pantomime.
Well, yeah, exactly. Carry on partying. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I wish you, all your staff, all members in the House, a Merry Christmas and a good New Year when it comes, and send my thanks to those in the front line, our emergency service and armed forces, for everything that they have done to get us through this year. Mr. Speaker, the public understands the threat that Omicron poses to all our people and to our NHS. But we saw from last night's vote the Tories might be privileged enough to live in denial about this danger, but the rest of us have the responsibility to live in the real world. That means increasing public health measures and increasing financial support for businesses and workers. The Scottish Government is delivering £100 million from our fixed budget to support businesses. But we all know that more is needed. Yesterday, the UK Government put out a press release saying that new financial support was coming. But last night, the Treasury U-turned saying no new money was available. So, Prime Minister, which is it? Is there any new money to support businesses, or was it all just smoke and mirrors once again?
Well, it's like everything that happens in Parliament, smoke and mirrors, isn't it?
To the right honourable gentleman, and I share some of the points that he made about the importance of being vigilant about Omicron. I think it's good that he set that out. I think it's important that we continue to work with the Scottish administration as we do to help everybody.
I'm surprised his wife, Carrie,
more money, as he knows,
for
chronic consequentials. There are also further powers under the existing devolutionary settlement for the Scottish administration to raise money if it chooses to, and they have that option. But we will of course continue with the discussions with the Scottish administration.
Ian Blackford.
Mr. Speaker, that simply wasn't an answer, and it really just does confirm it's all smoke and mirrors. There was no new money for Scotland. Once again, the Prime Minister can't trust a word that this Prime Minister says. Dodgy dealings on renovations.
Oh, I thought he was going to do a bloody call him Dodgy Boris.
Has left him weak. Last night, this UK government struggled to get measures through this House that Scotland has had for months. A Prime Minister who can't do what is needed to protect the public is no Prime Minister at all. Mr. Speaker, nobody wants further restrictions, but Scotland can't afford to be hamstrung if the Prime Minister can't act because he's got 99 problems behind him.
But this bitch ain't
will
one.
He give the involved governments the powers and financial support that we need to protect our people?
Mr. Speaker, I think we're going to need a bit bigger waistcoat to contain the synthetic indignation of the right honourable gentleman. Quite frankly, if I can just tell him that there are the powers. The Scottish administration has the powers. But what we've also done, Mr. Speaker, is a record settlement, settlement for Scotland, £41 billion. But I, in all friendship with the right honourable gentleman, who I'm actually quite cordial with behind the scenes, Mr. Speaker, we will work with the Scottish Government to make sure that we get through this thing together.
Sir Robert Neal. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Stroke is the leading cause of adult disability in the United Kingdom. It's the fourth largest killer. We've made much progress, but regrettably, in the last couple of years, key treatments like thrombectomy, thrombolysis and timely interventions in hospital have actually stalled and gone backwards. In particular, most stroke survivors do not receive less than half the recommended levels of rehabilitation, something which the Prime Minister knows my own family have experienced. Can we urgently look to upgrade the very good National Stroke Plan into a fully fledged national strategy for stroke, with a minister responsible for it and a dedicated team of officials in the department to roll that out?
I want to thank my right honourable friend for that question. I know he and I have discussed before his own personal reasons for caring so much about this issue, and I understand and I sympathise deeply with what he's saying. And that's why one of the reasons why I want to make sure that we do invest enough in this. There are 20 integrated stroke networks in
Someone's saying in the chat, Jeff Rowe,
is that
Jeff Rowe, the comedian,
by about 10-fold,
singer,
Mr. Speaker, very happy to make sure that he has the right meeting with the relevant minister to discuss the matter. But that's why it's so important that we invest now in our NHS in the way that we are, and what a pity that essential measure could not be supported by the party opposite.
Speaker, the Prime Minister's actions over the last number of months have absolutely eroded public confidence at the worst possible time in a public health crisis, excusing rule-breaking by his own MPs, ignoring rule-breaking in his own House. He can't even lead Tory MPs to vote for his public health guidance. How does he expect to lead anybody else? Surely now it is time, Mr. Speaker, for him to do the right thing, the only thing left him to restore public confidence, and resign.
No, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to get on with protecting the public of this country and making sure that we get through this pandemic together as one United Kingdom, Mr. Speaker, and making sure that we protect trade between Great Britain and Northern Ireland in the way that I know he would want it protected.
Peter Alders.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. In East Anglia, there are on the one hand tremendous opportunities in such sectors as low-carbon energy and sustainable fishing, and yet on the other hand, significant challenges with deep pockets of deprivation, particularly in coastal communities. I acknowledge the investment that has been made, but there is a concern locally that the government is yet to comprehend the scale of the opportunity that our region has to be a global exemplar in new and revitalised industries, and in doing so bring transformative and long-term benefits to local people. Will my right honourable friend meet with other East Anglian MPs and myself so that together we can put in place a strategy to realise the full potential of the East of England?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, but I also want to say that I understand completely the massive opportunity that exists in and the potential that exists in those coastal communities, and that is why we're investing £120 million already in 5 new town deals, including for Lowestoft. Mr. Speaker, and I'm sure that my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Levelling Up, will want to be taking his points on board as we bring forward the Levelling Up white paper in the new year.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does the Prime Minister believe that it is the damage being caused by Brexit, his litany of broken promises, his condoning of Conservative Party corruption, or just simply his complicity in lockdown, busting, Christmas parties and quizzes, which has caused the public to so dramatically, so rapidly lose faith in his leadership?
Mr. Speaker, what I observe is that actually it was our freedom from the rules of the European Union that enabled us to deliver the fastest vaccine rollout in Europe, and that has enabled us to have the fastest economic growth in the G7, and that is of massive benefit to each and every one of his constituents, and I think he should acknowledge that point.
Laura Farrell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of the significant achievements of this government is the work it's done with local authorities to tackle rough sleeping. 5 years ago, 36 people were sleeping rough in the Newbury area. This Christmas,
let's call it
West Berkshire
homelessness.
Council have
Let's
reduced
call it
that
what it is. Not
to 0.
sleeping rough, they're homeless.
But they can only sustain that success with the help of additional support services to tackle the complex causes of homelessness. What action will the government take through its new 10-year drug strategy to intercept the link between addiction and life on the streets?
Yes. My honourable friend is completely right to draw the link between drug addiction and rough sleeping, and that's why our drug strategy is so absolutely vital for tackling this problem. I also want to thank local councils, Mr. Speaker, and everybody involved in the Everyone In campaign. I think that homelessness and rough sleeping are a blight and a disgrace, a shame for our society, and I'm proud to say that levels are falling. Our rough sleeping snapshot shows levels have fallen 43% since 2017, though clearly as we come out of the pandemic,
I mean, it's
in
the
the
use
next
of language.
year or so, we must
it's not
make
rough
sure
sleeping,
that we
they're
continue
homeless.
to
They're
reduce
sleeping
rough
rough
sleeping.
because they're
Absolute
fucking
priority
homeless.
for this government.
Ben Lay.
Mr. Speaker, with the emergence of the Omicron variant and a rising number of COVID infections, more and more people are being asked to self-isolate, to stay at home, to look after isolating children. I've been contacted by people in Ceredigion who have been excluded from isolation support payments as they are not in receipt of benefits or above the weekly earnings threshold. Will the Prime Minister act urgently to increase statutory sick pay, which currently stands at a mere £96.35 a week, so that people in this position do not have to choose between following public health regulations or putting food on the table?
I thank him very much, and I understand the difficulties some families will find themselves in. We want to look after everybody throughout the pandemic, and that's why we've done things like lift the living wage in the way we have, increased the funds available for childcare, but also made sure that the councils have an extra hardship fund of £500 million to help families of the kind that he's describing through this winter.
Shakira Mellon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Following confirmation of the Crewe to Manchester leg of HS2, the Alstom factory and Crewe winning a HS2 rolling stock contract, and Crewe's long history at the heart of our railway industry, does the Prime Minister agree with me that Crewe is a strong contender for the headquarters of Great British Railways, and can he tell me when the process to choose the location of the new HQ will start?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think my brief says I'm going to be very careful in what I say. I've no doubt that Crewe is a strong contender, but further details of the competition will be announced in the coming weeks, Mr. Speaker, and I know that expressions of interest from places such as Crewe will be very welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After inquest verdicts on the 97 people who died in the Hillsborough disaster of unlawful killing, the Right Honourable Gentleman stood for election to this House on a manifesto that included legislating to introduce a public advocate. Why then is his government repeatedly blocking my public advocate bill, which has cross-party support and would prevent families bereaved by public disasters from ever again having to endure what the Hillsborough families have had to cope with over the last 32 years. Is it an oversight or yet another broken promise?
Broken promises, isn't it? Exactly what they do all the time.
We do recognise the importance of putting the bereaved and the bereaved of Hillsborough at the heart of an investigation, and we think that in certain circumstances funding may be available for a representation for the bereaved at a public inquiry or interest. We are considering, to her point, we are considering what steps should be taken. I will ensure that she has a meeting with the relevant minister in the relevant department, in the Home Office, as soon as possible.
Sir Bernard Jenkins.
Mr. Speaker, as we see Russian forces massing on the Ukrainian border,
they're not on the border. They're about 130 miles away. They're not on the border.
Assassinations, using gas as a political weapon, holding illegally territory in the Crimea, in Georgia, intimidating the West, and attempting
intimidating the West. I think it's the other way round. I think it's the West needling
President Putin is conducting a hybrid war against the West, and how is the government responding to it?
A load of bollocks. They just go into the Crimea, send their warship into the Crimea just to wind them up a little bit.
The particular urgency of the situation he's right in what he says about hybrid warfare and all the other interventions, but there is a particular crisis that we face on the border with Ukraine, where Russian troops have been massing for some time, as the House knows, and I told President Putin on Monday what I think everybody in the G7 and more widely is agreed, that if Russia were so rash, so mad as to engage in an invasion of sovereign territory of Ukraine, then there would be an extremely tough package of economic sanctions mounted by our allies, mounted by the UK and our friends around the world. There would also, of course, be support for Ukraine. There would inevitably be the build-up of NATO forces in the periphery regions, and as I told President Putin, I believe any such action would be catastrophic, not just for Russia and for Ukraine, but for the world.
See, if Russia wanted to, if Putin wanted to, he can put hundreds of thousands of troops on that border within hours. But he's not. He hasn't got that many troops. He's about 130 miles away from the border. And he's only got them there because he wants to open up talks.
Before the new year, roughly 2 weeks away. However, the Health Secretary and our national health leaders have said otherwise. We know that those who deliver our health service were not adequately consulted. The infrastructure to deliver was not prepared. Isn't this going to be yet another broken promise, Prime Minister?
Mr. Speaker, yes, this is a massive national effort. Yes, it will be incredibly hard to achieve. But do I believe that our NHS, our GPs, our volunteers can do it? Yes, I do, Mr. Speaker.
Kay Stevenson, you're right, he could invade us and America at once.
And rather than taking that approach, Mr. Speaker, can I advise all the Labour benches and all colleagues around this House to tell our constituents to get boosted now?
Tom Tugundar.
Speaker, I very much welcome my right honourable friend's answer to a question just a moment ago and his emphasis on global Britain and partnership in standing up to autocracies. Will he therefore share the concern that I have about the reports I've just got from the Foreign Office that there is a staff cut of 10% across the board? How is this compatible with global Britain?
Mr. Speaker, we are investing massively in overseas aid. We're investing massively, £10 billion a year in overseas aid. This country is spending, I think, we are the biggest spender in Europe. Overseas, 54 billion. If you look at what we're doing on aid, on the Foreign Office, on defence, we are the biggest spender on overseas activities of any country in Europe. And I know he's an expert on foreign affairs, Mr. Speaker, but I can tell him that the
See, these people have got no reality of what's going on in the outside world. You know, they go home to their fucking 8-bedroom houses and shit, They got no grasp on reality.
Mr. Speaker, Transport for London faces serious financial difficulties solely due to the pandemic causing the collapse in fares income. The emergency COVID funding to TfL expires the day after tomorrow. Prior to the pandemic, the Mayor of London spent 4 years improving TfL's finances.
Really? Really? Where's all the money gone that they wasted since it's been TfL back in house? Where's all the money gone?
There will be a nightmare in a moment. Can I just say, we want to get through the questions. I was hoping to get some extra people in. You're not helping me do so. Come on in, Ruth Capron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Prior to the pandemic, the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, spent 4 years improving TfL's finances after his predecessor inexplicably bargained away TfL's £700 million annual government grant.
See, that's what I mean. He should be piping up now. Order.
This government is putting the city's economy and environment at risk. Rail companies have had additional support. Will the PM instruct silent shaps to meet the Mayor immediately so that buses and tubes can continue to keep London moving from Friday?
Well, didn't that Minister for Transport stand up and say she wants to ban everyone from driving?
In this house, and I can tell her that when I was mayor and I was chairman of Transport for London, we had our finances in balance because I ran a responsible fares policy. When I left the mayoralty, we had Crossrail in surplus and we had our reserves in surplus. What happened actually was that the Labour Mayor of London embarked on a reckless, unfunded fares policy. A reckless, unfunded fares policy that cutting fares recklessly so as to leave a huge black hole in Transport for London's finances. And yes, Mr. Speaker, we have the greatest capitals. I'm not going to dissent. And we will, of course, help the stricken Labour.
Not a very good Speaker of the House, is he?
In any way that we can, but the blame lies fairly and squarely with City Hall.
He's not really good Speaker of the House.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to wish all of our constituents all across the country a Merry Christmas and a safe 2022. What matters to my Sedgefield constituents, though, is jobs, jobs, jobs. Would the PM join me in congratulating Hitachi and Alstom in securing the HS2 rolling stock contract, which is a tremendous vote of confidence in the people of Newton Aycliffe and Sedgefield? And could I ask him to encourage the Secretary of State for Transport to confirm that the feasibility study for Furriel Station approved his earliest convenience so we can get on with levelling up, building back better for Furriel, Bishop Midland, Sedgefield and the Cornford?
Absolutely.
Yes, I thank my honourable friend, who is a great advocate for Sedgefield and for his constituents and for levelling up. I congratulate Hitachi and Alstom on securing the HS2 stock order and the proponents of the Ferry Hill Station for completing the initial business case for the scheme. And Mr. Speaker, this is part of the £96 billion investment that we're making in our railway infrastructure, the biggest in 100 years, dwarfing anything that the Labour Party has ever embarked on, and we will get on with uniting and levelling up across our country.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm sure the Prime Minister would like to thank me for assisting him as he was unaware of last year's and been kept in the dark about last year's festivities with my assistance in lighting the Christmas tree in Downing Street this year. Unlike the Prime Minister, I am not in the dark as to what my staff are doing this year. We are serving and delivering over 1,000 hampers and gifts to families across
fucking give him a round of applause.
to ensure they get across Swansea, that they get Christmas. Will the Prime Minister please join me in congratulating and thanking everyone involved in Everyone Deserves a Christmas, and if he would like to come and light a tree in my constituency, I'll ensure there's one available for him.
Can I say that's one of the nicest things somebody said to me from the benches opposite for a long time, Mr. Speaker, and I do want to thank and congratulate everybody in her constituency who's helping to bring hampers to those who need it this Christmas. It's a wonderful thing.
More.
Wow.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My thoughts, and I'm sure the thoughts of the whole House, are with those who loved Star Hobson, who was brutally murdered by a monster whilst Star's evil mother allowed this to happen in Keighley. The court heard that numerous referrals were made to Bradford Council's Children's Services months in advance of Star's murder, but they were not taken seriously.
Yeah.
In fact, the case was closed.
Yeah, like they always
do. The Prime
do.
Minister will be aware that this is the latest of a long list of failings at Bradford Council's Children's Services, where political correctness appears to have been put before the welfare of children.
Yeah, they always pick on the wrong
confidence
families.
in Bradford Council's leadership to deliver children's services. And since the death of Star, I am pleased that the government has sent in a commissioner to
Sorry, I'm very bothered with going into sub judice. It is very, very serious, and I don't want to cause a real problem. I would say for the Prime Minister, if he could answer without getting any further details. I think we've gone a little bit too far into what the case is at the moment. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful for your direction. I would just want to say that I think the whole
that
House
means
will once again be
we
filled
can't
with
tell anyone yet because there's people watching.
The cruelty of people who could perpetrate a child killing like this, but also sadness and bewilderment that it could not have been prevented. And this we will appoint, as my honourable friend knows, appoint a commissioner to assess the relevant council, Bradford's capability and capacity.
The proceeding will start shortly.
Don't know what happened there a minute. Just lost the feed. I'll just get it back. Give me 1 sec. For some reason it's stopped. Bizarre. Just give me a minute. Just went off. Don't know where.
Congratulations to the Prime Minister and his wife on the birth of their daughter.
I'll go a bit more forward.
What matters to my Sedgefield constituents, though?
12:44. It will come back in 1 minute. It's just catching up. So give it a sec. Come on. Catch up. Don't know why it's lagged out.
Fares policy, a reckless, unfunded fares policy that cutting fares recklessly. I thank my honourable friend.
Here we go. We'll play it for a minute. I don't know what happened.
And for his constituents and for levelling up, I congratulate Hitachi and Alstom on securing the HS2 stock order, and the proponents of the Ferry Hill station for completing the initial business case for the scheme. And Mr. Speaker, this is
Sorry about that, guys.
Of the £96 billion investment that we're making in our railway infrastructure, the biggest in 100 years, dwarfing
I just had to
anything that the Labour
put it
Party
back
has
a
ever
few
embarked on.
minutes.
And we will get on with uniting and levelling up across our country.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm sure the Prime Minister would like to thank me for assisting him as he was
We
unaware
may
of
have already
last
just
year's
seen this.
and been kept in the dark about last year's festivities with my assistance
I
in
think it's
lighting
cut.
a Christmas tree in Downing Street this year. Unlike the Prime Minister, I am
We'll just stop that down there a minute. I think it's the feed cut out
and delivering over 1,000
because we've seen this. So we'll just let it play it through a minute.
to families across Swansea East to make sure they get across Swansea, that they get a Christmas. Will the Prime Minister please join me in congratulating and thanking everyone involved in Everyone Deserves a Christmas, and if he would like to come and light a tree in my constituency, I'll ensure there's one available for him.
Can I say that's one of the nicest things somebody said to me from the benches opposite for a long time? And Mr. Speaker, and I do want to thank and congratulate everybody in her constituency who's helping to bring hampers to those who need it this Christmas. It's a wonderful thing.
More.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My thoughts, and I'm sure the thoughts of the whole House, are with those who loved Star Hobson, who was brutally murdered by a monster whilst Star's evil mother allowed this to happen in Keighley.
Yeah, well, social services always get things wrong, don't they? They go after the wrong parents.
In advance of Star's murder, but they were not taken seriously. In fact, the case was closed. The Prime Minister will be aware that this is the latest of a long list of failings at Bradford Council's children's services.
It's all councils, not just in Bradford. It's all social services in all counties.
I have no confidence in Bradford Council's leadership to deliver children's services. And since the death of Star, I am pleased that the government has sent in a commissioner to oversee.
Sorry, I'm very bothered we're going into sub judice.
I think this is where the stream cut before. We'll see if it cuts again. If it is, it's a Parliament problem.
I think we've gone a little bit too far into what the case is at the moment. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful for your direction. I would just want to say that I think the whole House will once again be filled with incredulity at the cruelty of people who could perpetrate a child killing like this, but also sadness and bewilderment that it could not have been prevented. And this we will appoint, as my honourable friend knows, appoint a commissioner to assess the relevant council, Bradford's capability and capacity to improve on their findings, and they will report on their handling. They will report in January. But this will also feed in to the report that we've commissioned on the death of Arthur Lavinjo Hughes. And I say
think
to those
we're
who are responsible
back
to
where we were before.
Concerned that we will not.
No, it's a Parliament thing, not. I think it's a Parliament thing.
Hesitate to remove service control if that is what is necessary to drive
it's a Parliament thing, glitching.
That we need to see.
That comes to the end. We're going to go to you, Hughes. Can I just wish everybody a wonderful Christmas?
Oh, yeah.
The proceeding has ended.
Sorry, guys. That was we were right. That was Parliament question time for today. Not a lot happened.
The proceeding has ended.
The proceeding has ended. Let me just turn her volume off. But yeah, that was Parliament for today. Not many questions asked or answered, but would you expect that on the last day? But this is what's gonna, I'm putting my studio together. The shed is going up in the back garden. It got delivered yesterday, so that should be put up. But this is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be attending some protests, not all of them, but I will be doing mainly, discussions, watching Parliament question times, any sort of vote in the House that I'm going to start broadcasting, so people can sit there and actually chat in a chat rather than having no comments on the actual people who stream it. So this is what I'm thinking about doing. I hope you all can all join me eventually, but the shed will be up this week. I'm going to end it here, or I'm going to find something else that's going on in Parliament today and I may stream that. But this was just a little bit of a test to see if it would work properly, and it seems to work. I just got to play around with a few of the settings so it stream a bit more non-glitchy. Yeah, I was watching Australia this morning. I was watching the Freedom Ball with Aussie Cossack and a few of the politicians from over there. We were having their party and award ceremony. Yeah, this is what I'm going to go down now, and protesting is I see not really making any sort of difference. It's just bringing people together and making them feel part of something, and they're not alone, which is a good thing. But is it going to affect any sort of change politically? Is it going to stop the vaccine passes? Is it going to stop, them making it eventually mandatory vaccinations? Who knows, I don't see walking along a street is actually going to achieve that anymore. And, it just brings people together so they're not alone. Good for mental health, but I don't see it's going to affect any sort of real change. I've been doing it over a year now and nothing's changed, and I've seen lots of people getting hurt. It hasn't done my mental health any good watching people getting hurt, abused, crying. So basically I can't watch it, can't view it anymore. It's just not, it's not good, and I don't do it now for views, and I've never done this for views, and I can't watch another human being physically get hurt anymore just for the sake of a few thousand views. It's not worth it. Really not. And you're so right. For some, protesting is a LARP. They do it for fun. They also do it to take their Instagram pictures to say, yeah, I was at the protest. What were you fighting for? What were you there for? What brought you there to that protest that day, rather than just take your pictures and, get a bit of kudos because you were at the protest? Gimp Wagon, you're right. It's soul destroying, and they do it for a reason, I believe. The strong people they try to break down with, demoralising and. Yeah, you're right, Susie. None of us have improved through this. None of us. It's brought what I can see that this has achieved. It's brought a lot of people together. And, that I've met lots of people through the internet, through YouTube, that I would never have met if I didn't take this up. So, yeah, that's what it's done. It's brought people together, but there's no real ultimate goal of what they really want. What are we fighting for? When we go to protests and we march along the streets, what are we actually fighting for? What is the goal? What is the end goal? Because I've never heard anybody say what the actual end goal is. Does anybody know? All I see is just loads of people, got their channels, they do their own thing, they put their own message out. There's no real cohesion. This is the message, this is what we're trying to achieve, all of it. Now, are we all behind it? But we're not. We just seem to have hundreds of different groups with near enough the same sort of message, but their way. It seems to be nobody wants to follow one person to sort this out. It just seems to be we've got to follow 50 different people. It needs to get the people to drop their egos at the gate and don't pick them up till they leave. Because it's not about them. It's not about how big YouTube you have, how much of a star you are, how many people you've got dripping off of you because they hang off every word you say. This is about our freedom and our rights being eroded away. Okay? That's what it's about. It's not about I'm more popular than you. I'm going to sell another book. I'm going to release another record, or, because that's all I'm seeing at the moment. All I'm seeing. If you were really for freedom and rights, you would do this for nothing. Completely. It's a bit like YouTube and me. I don't know when the last time YouTube has actually monetized a video of mine. PayPal have now banned me from the use of YouTube, from the use of PayPal. I can no longer have a PayPal account. They banned me for life. They banned Tommy Robinson for life as well. So I'm started to have all my sources being stripped away. So I'm not going to be around much longer. So yeah, I'm no longer have PayPal. I've got, you know, no longer really any way to fund what I do apart from myself now. Thank you, Agent Smith. Thank you for that $5 donation. Much appreciated. You don't have to, and I don't do it, and I don't. I'm just waiting to YouTube to demonetize me again, and that, you know, that'd be it. Just going through the chat. I got crypto. I do have a coin. Is it Coinbase? I do. I don't have Bitcoin. I have Shinobi. It's a new one that was just being released, which is doing quite well at the moment. This is it. We all, you know, as you see, I don't really talk when I come online. I don't really talk about what's going on in my life, my family business, and things like that, because at the end of the day, you've got your own problems, haven't you? You've all got your own family problems and shit like that. You don't want me adding to you, so that's why I'm more keeping my private life out of the spotlight rather than, you know, bringing it into the channel. You all know I've got a wife and children, so, you know, I don't really think, because at the end of the day, what goes on in my life is my life, isn't it? We've all got our problems. We all got our shit going on behind closed doors, don't we? Yeah. Let's bring that in. That's a nice picture there at Boomer Turk. That is in Minsk, Belarus. Yes, we've all got to... Can I ask everyone a question in the chat? What do they class themselves as? Do you class yourself as a human or a person? It's quite a simple question. What do you class yourself as, a human being or a person? Yeah, you're not a person. A person isn't real. A person is a fictional character in legalese. You're a human being. If you're a person, then, you know, they've got you. You're either living man or living woman. There's no in between. Let's just get it right, and it's not being against LGBTQT+. You're either living man or living woman. End of story. But we'll get on to that because I want to get into the whole, not freeman of the land, I want to get into the whole common law, jurisdiction, all the common law stuff. Because this is what we need to all know now, Because Jesus did say, my people perished through lack of knowledge. Okay? Jesus told us that. So we have to empower ourselves with knowledge. Knowledge is power. We've been brought up with that saying for our whole lives. Knowledge is power. Well, why don't we use that? We have to use their statutes and acts against them. We have to start, becoming a bit more savvy with what, with what law is, what is lawful and what is legal. And what's given the full force of the law by the consent of the governed, which is a statute and act. We really need to get into what common law is, because that is the only saviour. So guys, I'll leave you with that little pond there is. Think about, is anyone above you? Who's above you? Is any man better than you? No. No man is better than any man. Simple, isn't it? So guys, until the next time. Oh, let's bring that down there. It's really good that you joined me this morning. It was just a little, like I said, it was just a little test of to see if it worked, and obviously it works very well. Let me just take that off. Take the opacity off. Down, 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 down. I couldn't even get that in the middle, look, could I? Water, Wally. There you go. That's a bit better now. That's in the middle. But until the next time, guys, I'm gonna get off. I'm obviously gonna do the phone in on Saturday. I hope you all can join me. Make sure you do, because we are gonna bring some more exciting guests in. It's not gonna be just the normal people chatting all the time. There is gonna be some extra people coming on. We need to really start talking about the legal fiction and the human aspect of everything. You really all need to get into that. But I will start to give you my knowledge and how I get away with what I get away with. Until the next time, guys. It's Time to Find the UK signing out. You're all special to me. I see you all on Saturday. Bye now.